A new sci-fi show, Debris, on NBC, another new guessing game on Fox, and a bunch of news for you as well. Let's talk TV. Hey everybody, Dan here. Welcome to Dan Reviews It. This is TV news and reviews for the week. We've got a lot of ground to cover. 5 new shows for you, including Debris over on NBC. Tell Me Your Secrets on Amazon Prime. We've got Soul of a Nation, a news magazine show about Black lives here in America over on ABC. We've got a, reality sort of competition show, I guess, which we'll get into, called Marriage or Mortgage on Netflix, and then Game of Talents on good old Fox, adding to their sort of guessing game prime time lineup. But first, let's talk about some news. Last week, I did the Is Paramount Plus Worth It video, so there was no news. So this is like a week and a half's worth of news here, so let's just dive into it. Renewals and cancellations are first. Renewed is The Equalizer on CBS. This is only 4 episodes into its run, but obviously it premiered after the Super Bowl, so it had some pretty big numbers. 23.8 million watched the premiere, and since then it's been averaging about 14.5 million every week, which apparently makes it the #1 non-sports program in prime time. I find that a little bit hard to believe. Maybe they mean maybe they mean scripted program. I don't know. The article I read said that, and I was like, that can't be true, because I feel like Masked Singer definitely gets more views than that. I feel like maybe This Is Us and Grey's Anatomy do too, but either way, I don't know. Maybe it just meant on CBS. That could be, I suppose. But either way, they're very happy with the ratings on The Equalizer, so they've renewed that for Season 2. Also for Season 2, on Apple TV Plus, Dear... That is a... not reality, I shouldn't say that, a biography show maybe, where the basis is celebrity fans, writing letters to their heroes, and then those heroes sort of expounding upon their impact, on the culture and on their fans and this and that and the other thing. And first season, Spike Lee did one. I forget who all did one. Did Oprah do one maybe? But this season they're going to do Selena Gomez and Viola Davis, among others, so that will be returning. And then also on Apple TV Plus, Central Park. Season 2 has not even premiered yet. That will be June 25th, but it has been renewed for Season 3 already. I loved this show. I only did end up watching the first 2 episodes so I could review them, but at some point I'll go and finish the first season. This was a great animated series from Lauren Bouchard, who created Bob's Burgers. So happy to see that one succeeding so much at Apple TV Plus. And then Netflix is adding a couple shows to their reality type of programming. They've had a lot of success, especially this last year and a half, with some of these shows. So Bling Empire and Selling Sunset are going to be renewed. I typically don't review a lot of those types of shows unless, they're like in Netflix's top 10 for a while, unless they become real big, just because there's so many of them. And it's not a genre that I generally really care about. Like Keeping Up with the Kardashians and all that kind of stuff. I don't care. The Real Housewives, whatever. But these ones, one of them is Untitled, but will focus on an all-black, all-female real estate firm in the Florida coast. And then we've also got one called My Unorthodox from the team behind Bling Empire that focuses on this fashion mogul Julia Hart and how she and her family deal with their ultra-Orthodox Jewish community upbringing. So those are going to be 2 new additions to the slate from the same people who brought you Bling Empire and Selling Sunset, and then Bling and Selling will be renewed. So a lot of new reality-type shows coming to Netflix if you're interested in that. Series endings. A couple shows I don't watch, don't know really even much about. Queen of the South is ending on USA after its upcoming 5th season in April. USA really down to just about 3 scripted shows, I believe. They used to have so many. I mean, they were the home for a lot of that stuff. Monk and Psych and what was the one? Burn Notice, Suits. They had a whole lineup of shows, and lately they're really just dwindling down as they sort of are, if not closing the book, at least maybe putting a bookmark in the scripted shows that they're going to have on the network. They also have no network executive right now directly involved with USA. Of course, they're under the NBC Universal umbrella, so there's probably a few different hands in the mix, but apparently USA currently has no network executive in charge of these scripted shows. So that could be one reason right there. Another one I don't know really too much about, Kim's Convenience, is ending on Netflix and the CBC after its current 5th season is airing right now in Canada, and that ends in April. It is Canada's first comedy led by an all-Asian cast. And I've heard of this show. I think somebody even recommended it to me, but it is streaming now on Netflix, and I guess when the 5th season wraps up, that will go to Netflix shortly after. So, I guess I've heard good things about it. I don't really know much about it other than it takes place at a convenience store. Pose will be ending after a shortened season 3 on FX. The first 2 of the 7-episode season will be premiering May 2nd. I was a little surprised by this because Pose is a very popular show, and FX is certainly no stranger to the scripted shows. They are not at all closing the door or the book on any scripted content. They are one of the strongest and fastest providers of scripted, specifically drama, but they still do comedy with Always Sunny and stuff like that on cable. I think it's probably them and AMC maybe are the two that are producing the most scripted content. But yeah, Pose, I guess, for whatever reason, will be ending. And then this was an interesting one. It's not going to be dead in the water just yet, but Grey's Anatomy could be coming to a close. Showrunners are viewing this season finale as a possible series finale if it needs to be that. It is currently ABC's #1 drama series, but after 17 years, it is getting very expensive to produce. Ellen Pompeo is the highest paid actress in prime time. At this point, she might be, now that Modern Family is over, because I think maybe Ed O'Neill was, and then before that, of course, the guys on Big Bang Theory were, Ellen Pompeo may be the highest paid person in prime time. I'm trying to think if there's any men that have been around on a show that long that they would command that high of a price tag. I'm honestly not sure. She may be the highest paid person in prime time. But either way, it's getting very expensive to produce, but it is still a ratings juggernaut. So hard to say what they'll do with it, but it's interesting that the people that are running Grey's Anatomy are saying, well, this could be a series ender if they decide not to renew. In casting news, we've got America Ferrera returning to Superstore. There's going to be an hour-long series finale on March 25th, and she left just earlier this season. It was supposed to be at the end of last season, but their last few episodes got shut down because of COVID, but great that she's returning. I am so many seasons behind. I started real late to the Superstore party, so I think I finished season 3 maybe, and this would be, I believe, season 6. So, maybe once it's over, I'll just do a big, week-long binge or something. But I do really enjoy the show. I think it's got a nice ensemble cast to it. We'll be sorry to see that one go for sure. The Good Wife is entering season 5 on Paramount Plus, and they've added Mandy Patinkin to their cast. Love The Good Fight, loved The Good Wife, and I generally enjoy Mandy Patinkin. So that should be interesting. Lost fans, I was excited to hear this. Josh Holloway from Lost, who played Sawyer, has signed on to star in this new drama for HBO Max called Duster from LaToya Morgan and Lost co-creator J.J. Abrams. So a little bit of a reunion there. And he plays a getaway driver for a crime syndicate in the 1970s in the Southwest. So will be interesting. He just came off of Yellowstone. And if he's done on Yellowstone, I don't know if that means his character got killed off. I don't watch the show, so it's not really a spoiler because I have no idea. But the article said he has just finished wrapping with Yellowstone. But maybe that just means the season has wrapped and he's still on the show. I don't know. But I actually didn't know he was on Yellowstone. I knew Kevin Costner, but that was it. So, but I've always liked him. Sawyer was one of my favorites, I would say, from Lost. And then a couple of big names. Oscar winners Natalie Portman and Lupita Nyong'o will headline a limited series at Apple TV Plus called Lady in the Lake that is based on best-selling Laura Lippman book. It will be the first regular series role for Natalie Portman, so should be kind of interesting there. Some items about show's moving networks, George R.R. Martin's Wild Cards, which I don't think I've even heard about, but obviously George R.R. Martin, everybody knows him, but that's going to be moving from Hulu to Peacock. They decided after a few scripts were written that it was too dark for Hulu, which, thinking about it, yeah, there's, some mature content on Hulu, but it is true that, like, most of the really intense stuff is either on Amazon Prime or Netflix, not so much on Hulu. Maybe there's stuff I'm not really thinking of, but yeah, so that's moved to Peacock. And then also coming to Peacock, moved from NBC, Langdon, which is based on the Robert Langdon character from the Dan Brown books that Tom Hanks, of course, played in all of the movies. And that was supposed to be, or at least it was a pilot for NBC. They never actually did a commitment to the series, but obviously they want to keep it in the family. They approved it for series, but not for NBC proper, for the streamer Peacock. And then Loudermilk, which is a Ron Livingston show. I was not really familiar with this, but it had 2 seasons on Audience Network in 2017 and 2018. Audience Network kind of folded about a year ago and became more of an advertising channel for HBO Max, which was at the time, yet to be released. So Amazon is going to take over the first 2 seasons. They're going to throw those up, but apparently a 3rd season was shot completely. It's done. It's been in the can for a couple of years, and because Audience Network shut down, it just never aired anywhere. So Amazon is also going to air the never-before-seen 3rd season of Loudermilk. And they also picked up recently Tell Me Your Secrets from TNT, which is something we're going to talk about today in the reviews. So obviously Amazon is no slouch on picking up other properties, which I actually think is really cool because we haven't seen a lot of that lately. Like the Mindy Project went to not Prime, Hulu, I guess, and then Netflix picked up Arrested Development stuff. But for the most part, those are the outliers. And not the rule. A couple of random notes here. The Queen's Gambit, this is more of Broadway news, I guess, but The Queen's Gambit was purchased by Level Forward for a possible Broadway musical. I only mention it because I loved The Queen's Gambit. It was my #1 show of 2020. It is the most watched limited series ever on Netflix. And this company, Level Forward, these are the ones that did Jagged Little Pill. They took the Alanis Morissette album and made it into a Broadway musical, and that was up for 15 Tony nominations. So, obviously they kind of know what they're doing. I'm not sure that you're ever going to really improve on that original Queen's Gambit series with Anya Taylor-Joy, but, Godspeed. Maybe they can come up with some good songs for it, and we'll see how that works. But yeah, I thought that was a little noteworthy. And then also NBC's summer schedule is shaping up. America's Got Talent, Making It, and American Ninja Warrior will all be returning with COVID restrictions in place and all of this. America's Got Talent did a COVID season last summer, so no surprise that's returning. And then the Olympics is still scheduled for July 23rd through August 8th, and that, as always, will be on NBC. So obviously that was supposed to be on last summer. But yeah, so it looks like their summer season is shaping up. And then a couple of reboots for you. Bosch is just ending, or maybe it already ended, but like this year was its final season. It ended, but it's a very popular show, and so now there's going to be a spin-off at IMDb TV, which is owned by Amazon. So makes sense to kind of keep it in the family. Why are they canceling it in the first place then? I'm not sure, because it's going to be with Titus Welliver as Bosch, and a lot of the cast is returning. So it doesn't seem to me to be so much a spinoff as a just straight up continuation with no time really dissolved, because it just ended this year. So I don't know. Maybe there's more to it than that. But for now, it seems like it's just kind of a continuation, just on a different network. But they're not calling it that; they're calling it a spinoff. Party Down will also possibly be coming back for a 6-episode run on Starz, and this is a show that boasted a lot of sort of, yeah, you might know this person from something, but now we're gonna make them kind of famous from Party Down. None of them really got famous off Party Down, but a lot of sort of before they were stars are on it. Adam Scott, Jane Lynch, and a few people that were already stars. Megan Mullally is in it as well, and it was after Will and Grace shut down. A couple of years later, she did Party Down. So it only had 2 seasons, and I think they were 10-episode seasons. So there's only really, a couple dozen episodes for Party Down, but they're looking to get the entire cast back, kind of the way Netflix did with Wet Hot American Summer a few years ago. Even though Bradley Cooper and Amy Poehler and stuff had blown up, they still came back to their roots for Wet Hot American Summer, which I thought was very cool. I never ended up watching the show, but I've seen the movie, and it's pretty cool that they got everybody, kind of back to do that. All right, so there you go. That was the news. I sort of breezed through a lot of that, but wanted to focus on the reviews. We do have 5 of them, like I said. So let's start first with Debris, and this is a new sci-fi series on NBC, and because I did the Paramount Plus show last week, so we're sort of a week behind on new shows. I was able to watch the first 2 episodes of Debris because they have both aired now. So I'll read you the tag that's at the beginning of each episode that sort of sets up the premise. And it just says, 3 years ago, images were captured of a wrecked alien spacecraft moving through our solar system. For the past 6 months, debris from that spacecraft has been falling to Earth. So that's sort of the setup. And then really what the show does is follow these 2 agents who are played by Jonathan Tucker and Rhiannon Steele. They're from 2 different continents, 2 different mindsets, 2 different universes, and they have to investigate when wreckage from that alien spacecraft has some mysterious effects on people of Earth. Like I said, I was able to catch the first 2 episodes of this. Every so often, a network show tries to recreate Lost. Lost was completely revolutionary back in the day, and it was the first show that really had it was a dramatic show, I should say that. Like it wasn't obviously the first like soap opera to have a continuing story, but in terms of like a drama or sci-fi show, it had this continuing storyline that you had to follow every week and pick up the clues and follow along, and there were all these websites devoted to the theories and all that stuff. It was an amazing thing, and unfortunately I am one of the people that thinks it kind of fell apart in the last couple seasons, but the first 3-4 seasons of Lost were just fascinating, right? So every year or 2 after that, there would be several shows on major networks to kind of try and pick up that torch, and they've sort of fallen off lately because of the binge viewing, so a lot of that stuff ends up going to Netflix or Hulu or whatever, so people can binge all 10 episodes, but NBC, they're still trying. They have several shows actually that are still on the air for them that you really do have to follow along each week to figure out how it connects, and they're not procedurals like CBS has, and they're not soap operas like Grey's Anatomy kind of thing. They have a couple on the air. Blacklist is still on the air, and then the one, was it Manifest, which I stopped watching because the acting is just god-awful. But Debris seems to be the next one to sort of try to pick up that torch. And I think the pilot actually was extremely compelling. We learn, a little bit about the debris. We learn about a little bit what the debris is doing. And we also learn a bit about the agents, and Tucker and Steele have a great chemistry together. I'm not really familiar with either of them. I don't think Rhiannon Steele, I'm not I don't know at all. Jonathan Tucker, I've seen in a couple things, he had a minor role in the Charlie's Angels reboot a couple years ago, but in something like this, not so much. And I think they work great off each other. And I think that the subject matter is fascinating. We're sort of trying to figure out, and learn what this debris is doing to people. However, it's not entirely original because it's very reminiscent of the X-Files, because of course you had in that one Mulder and Scully, who were both, same thing, not necessarily from 2 different continents, but from 2 different worlds, thrown together to solve these interesting sci-fi, mysteries. And of course, X-Files was, for the most part, standalone episodes, as was a similar show from a few years ago, Fringe, from, I think, Chris Carter as well, did Fringe and the X-Files. And this is sort of a little reminiscent of both of those shows. And there's, some elements of some other things. The 4400 on USA, back in the day, sort of has, people with special powers and they can't figure out how they got them and da-da-da-da-da. But I think as long as this show can sort of follow through on the premise that they've started and the intrigue and the mystery that they've created without veering wildly off course or without, throwing too much caution to the wind and start throwing all these things in there, which I think is kind of what got lost in the end. The show lost. It was just like they started just throwing everything against the wall because, look, 4 or 5 seasons in, a lot of shows are going to do that. What's nice now is most shows like this are only 10 to 13 episodes a season, whereas Lost had, I think, 18 to 20. So obviously they had a lot more episodes to churn out. So something like this, you can, I think, reel it in a little bit and sort of focus on the story at hand. I think if they continue the goodwill from the pilot, I think they may have something. I think it's the best sci-fi pilot I've seen since Emergence in 2019, which ended in 1 season, but it was, I thought quite well wrapped in that season. This one, I think the goal would be to keep it going for several seasons. But for now, I really liked this pilot. I like the concept, and I like the chemistry of the 2 leads. Yes, it's not completely an original concept, what really is anymore. But as long as they can keep the momentum going, I'm all in on this show. I leave Debris with a B+. Up next, let's talk about Tell Me Your Secrets. This is another sort of sci-fi one. Now, this was originally intended for TNT, but is now on Amazon Prime. And to be honest, I can see why maybe TNT didn't run it. Like when I was watching it, because I knew it was originally earmarked for TNT, when I was watching that first episode, I was like, this doesn't really seem like a TNT kind of show. Like I know they do some interesting things, and I think that's the home of Snowpiercer, which is, in that sci-fi sort of dystopia vein. But this is like very dark and gritty, and it's not the type of show I think that can sustain itself upon weekly viewing. I think this is one that makes more sense to be able to binge all the way through, so it makes more sense to me on Amazon. But basically it follows a trio of characters, and each of them have a mysterious past. You've got Emma, played by Lily Robb, who used to be Karen, but she, is in witness protection right now because she had an experience with a dangerous killer. And then you've got John, played by Hamish Linklater, who is a former serial predator, I should say, who wants to redeem himself and make good on the awful past life that he had. And then you've got Mary, played by Amy Brenneman, who is a grieving mother who is obsessed with finding her missing daughter. And each one of them, as we go along, sort of we dig deeper into their story and find out more of their truth. So I watched 2 episodes of this, and I have to say this is a bit of a mixed bag. For one thing, this is an issue I seem to have over and over again with a lot of these shows, is that the incessant flashbacks without any real earmarks of, okay, now we're in a flashback, or, scene change. Really, it's like there's no markers of like, okay, well, your hair's a lot different, so this must be in this era, or you're listening to this on the radio, so it must be in this era. There's almost no earmarks of what is a flashback. So the first episode, I almost got whiplash trying to figure out, okay, like, what era are we in? Where does this person fit in? And it's especially confusing because this Emma woman used to be Karen, so she herself, has 2 completely separate lives. So that's just sort of adding layers onto it. So it's very confusing, which is, I think, another reason that a weekly show like this, I think, would not quite work out as well as being able to binge all 10 episodes at once if you want to, because then you can really invest yourself in these characters without trying to remember, okay, well, who's doing what and in what situation. In addition to that, the acting is not particularly that great. I think there's some overacting here, even from Amy Brenneman, who I typically like. I mean, I wouldn't say she's like an A-lister, but typically like her performances, but she is, a bit over the top here. And look, a lot of this is very sensitive material. She's lost her daughter, doesn't know if she's dead or just missing or what has happened to her. So there's obviously going to be some intensity and some waterworks and stuff, but she's going a little over the top even, out of that. And so it makes the show a little bit silly. Now the gal that plays Emma / Karen, Lily Robb, I really liked her in this. She's sort of the thing to me that keeps the momentum going. And then the Hamish Linklater character, I don't mind a redemption story, but also, look, I just have watched all the Silence of the Lambs and the Hannibal type movies, and my buddy Joe and I are going to be watching the Hannibal TV series. Hannibal to me is, sort of the ultimate character of, yes, I was a serial killer, and now I'm, going to try and redeem myself a little bit by helping you find other serial killers. So we've sort of definitely had that sort of theme going on. So I don't know. I mean, this is one where I think it will live and die by how the series wraps. I'm not sure if it's earmarked as a mini-series at this time or a full-on series. So we could get a season 2 of this, I guess. But, other than some interesting set designs, some interesting cinematography, I think this show is a bit more middling than it may seem on the surface. So I'm going to leave Tell Me Your Secrets with a C+. Let's move over to ABC for the news magazine Soul of a Nation. And this is a 6-part documentary series, and it is the first news magazine in U.S. history to focus on Black lives in America. Usually when news magazines are like 60 Minutes, 2020, so usually it's like a different story each week, and this is sort of that in a roundabout sense, because you've got 2 or 3 different stories every week that we're going to focus on, meet different people or get reacquainted with people we already know, like John Legend, for example, in the first episode, and they share their experiences with being Black in America and growing up perhaps Black in America. And what it means to them today, and all of this stuff. And Sterling K. Brown hosted the first episode, and they're going to rotate every episode. The gal from Blackish is going to be in the second one that just aired a few days ago. I haven't watched that one yet, but I think this is a really interesting show. They were advertising the heck out of it. Most of the live TV I watch is on ABC, because I watch Jeopardy, I watch the ABC Evening News, I watch The Connors. So, I've really been inundated with 2 ads. Rebel, which is the upcoming Katie Seagal show, and then Soul of a Nation, which Common was sort of the spokesperson for the ads. And basically it was, a show. The tagline is something like a show by Black people for all people. And I think the issue that this series is going to face is the people that perhaps might need to watch it the most are not going to, and they're going to be sort of turned off by the subject matter. For me, it certainly was enlightening in some aspects, and the John Legend interview was great. And it wasn't so much a sit-down interview a la 60 Minutes where you actually see the interviewer asking questions. It was more of just John Legend sort of talking. But, he was very candid about, his wife's miscarriage last year and how they were dealing with that on top of, the George Floyd protests and COVID and all of this, and how, he wrote this song a couple of years ago that really, really has a lot more meaning now after all of the George Floyd, Breonna Taylor killings and stuff. So that kind of stuff, it was very interesting, and John Legend even performed the song for us at the end of the episode. And so it's put together very well. It opens with a poem from Common that I imagine he wrote for this series. And it is, look, learning about Black lives in this country for me has been very interesting because, really the last few years, the finding out about the Tulsa, Black Wall Street thing from Watchmen that actually did happen, 100 years ago was like fascinating to me. And I was like, okay, like let's see what else we didn't learn about in school. And so it's all of these different layers. And so I love that shows like this exist. I'm not sure the audience that needs to see it will care or tune in. But for people like me who maybe want to get more educated about what it feels like to be black in America, I am fascinated by that, and I like all of these people that they have involved. My biggest complaint with it is the third segment, which they're calling In the Kitchen, and it's from some gal that is on The View. The only people I know from The View anymore are Whoopi, and I think Meghan McCain is still on it, but she is on The View apparently, and so she's hosting this sort of round table discussion, and it's called In the Kitchen, but it's really just some couches and a big table, and they're just going back and forth. The conversation that took place was interesting, and Sterling K. Brown was a part of that, which I imagine the host of each episode will be a part of the kitchen segment. But it's just a blatant ripoff of Red Table Talk with Jada Pinkett Smith. I mean, it couldn't be more obvious. Much like The Talk is a ripoff of The View, since we're going to be sticking with the View theme here. So that is my biggest miss on this, is that there were some interesting conversations that came out of it, but it's so blatantly a ripoff of Red Table Talk, which I find very fascinating as well. I like interview style sit downs and stuff like that. I find that interesting when people can kind of just be themselves. And the topic at hand for this particular first episode was, when did you realize that you were black? And so, Sterling K. Brown told a story about asking a girl out to this dance, and then she called him up later that night and said, my parents aren't racist, but they don't think that, lovers should mix or whatever, or dates should mix. So that was like, wow, that's, that was a great story to hear because it was so obviously personal to him and something that stuck with him. And when I say it was a great story to hear, I don't mean what happened was great, but the fact that, he's sort of unburdening himself in this manner. I thought that was great, but just the segment is such a ripoff. So, look, I liked this show. It's 6 episodes long. It runs through April 6th, so if you're interested in that kind of thing, I think it's very, very interesting. Soul of a Nation, I will give a B+ to. Up next, we're going to talk about Marriage or Mortgage. This is over on Netflix, and this is something that I would normally not really cover because it's not something that I would say I care about. But here's the deal. It was doing, very good on Netflix. I think it's still probably in their top 10 like a week and a half after it was out. And I found the concept intriguing. Like some of the dating shows on Netflix I've done. So every so often I will do some of these more reality type shows. But this takes place with 2 women. And it's not necessarily a competition show, I guess, for the people involved. But essentially, we have a real estate agent and a mortgage broker, or I should say a real estate agent and a marriage, what do you call those, like marriage coordinators or marriage planner, maybe something like that. Anyway, and so each couple will meet with both of them, both individually and together, to try and figure out either their dream wedding or their dream home. And they tell you the budget, which in the first couple's case was $35,000. And so, okay, we'll find you a house that you can make a down payment for $35,000 and grow from there. Or, okay, we'll find you a wedding for $35,000. So they go through all the steps with these women, and the women are sort of in competition with each other, but there's no prizes given out other than like the couple, gets some discounts and stuff, and we got you this food truck you wanted. Well, instead of $1,500, it's only $750, whatever, that kind of thing. But there's no real money won or anything like that on this show. And I don't generally watch like home designer and home buyer shows, so I don't know if that's typical, but I feel like kind of the joke that goes around is, okay, we have $50,000 budget. Okay, well, let's get you a $2 million house then. That's kind of like the joke that these reality shows do. One thing I thought was kind of interesting about this is these couples actually do have to decide whether they want to spend this money on a wedding or to buy a new house. It is an either or thing. And so it is actually kind of an interesting concept. However, I also think at this stage in the game here, we're a year into COVID, many people are out of work, many people, are if they're not homeless, they're, really hanging on by a thread because their rent is so far behind and this and that and the other thing. It's like, it may be a little bit kind of gross to sort of look at a show like this and say, oh, we can get you your dream wedding for $35,000 when there were so many weddings that were, postponed or canceled entirely because of COVID and stuff like that. And in one of the episodes I watched, we'll see that actually did happen. The couple chooses the wedding, and it turns out because of COVID, they didn't have the wedding they wanted anyway, so they sort of lost out on that kind of money anyway. But whatever. I don't know. It was interesting enough. I think if you like home makeover shows, or you like not even home makeover, but like the house flippers, or whatever those kind of shows, the real estate shows, or if you like the say yes to the dress and like the marriage type shows, I think this is actually probably a pretty good one. I don't watch shows like this, so it's hard for me to say like how it compares to others. I just find it odd that, like, I don't know, they were within their budget. They had a good job. Why isn't there some kind of like $10,000 prize or something at the end to, like, okay, well, now on top of this, we'll give you $10,000 to put, choose more of a down payment. Or, okay, you chose the wedding, well, here's $10,000 towards a house too, since you didn't get to pick the house. I don't know. It seems a little like odd that they wouldn't have some sort of more of a reward at the end of the show. But I thought it was, for what it is, it's not too bad. I'm actually going to leave this show, Marriage or Mortgage, with a B. And finally, we're going to do Game of Talents over on Fox. This is a new addition to their Wednesday Masked lineup. They've been rocking the game shows for a while now on Wednesdays. Masked Singer, Masked Dancer, Name That Tune, I Can See Your Voice, and now you've got Game of Talents, which is the new one hosted by Wayne Brady. And essentially you have two teams of contestants that will be given a list of talents at the beginning of the episode, and through different clue packages, they will have to try and guess what talent this person in front of them has. And there's big bucks to be won. They could win up to $200,000. But this show is incredibly stupid. All of these guessing game shows on Fox are kind of stupid, right? The MASH shows are kind of dumb, but I have fun watching them. I think the panel is fun and the interaction stuff. I think the MASH shows are fun. I love Name That Tune because, of course, I'm a big music guy. I loved the old Name That Tune from the 80s, so I like the new one as well. There's a few things with this one. First of all, Wayne Brady is actually a good host, and I think he's kind of a funny dude. Like, I always liked his improv stuff on Who's Line. But he is notoriously, in some Hollywood circles, and, there's a morning show I listen to out of Philly, and they interviewed Wayne Brady like 15 years ago, and they still to this day say he was the biggest jerk they ever interviewed. And it was before I was listening to the show, so I don't know what exactly happened, but, they interview, hundreds of people a year and don't really have any problems with any of them, but they always go back to Wayne Brady. And they actually had one of the guys from Who's Line, I think it was Colin Mockery, was on the one time, and they asked him about Wayne Brady, and he was basically like, well, I was always told if you don't have anything nice to say about anybody, don't say it. So, like, he's just got a reputation for being a jerk. And so it's hard for me to watch him be all, funny and silly with the contestants, when in the back of my mind I know, like, oh, dude, you're making all this money and you suck as a person. I don't like that. But I do think he's a good host, so I can't hold it too much against him. But the gameplay of this show is just so stupid. It's pretty obvious if you're paying attention what the talent of the person is, although the people they choose are moronic and, like, don't get it. But also the cash they're giving away, it's like ridiculous. $10,000 for guessing this, $15,000 for guessing that. The last round is worth $60,000 just for guessing a person's talent. It's a silly concept. It's sort of a mix of, like, America's Got Talent and some sort of, game show, I guess. And it sort of misses the mark, I think, on both aspects. And it's a little slow, too. Like, Name That Tune, yes, it's an hour long on Fox, but they play 2 full games in it. This is literally an hour-long show where they're just guessing people's talents, and there's 9 things, but there's only 8 people, so, one of the talents is a ruse, but it's like, so for an hour, we just have to sit here and watch people come up with 8 different talents. The clue packages are maybe a little interesting and clever, but I think this show is kind of a miss. And of all the ones on Fox with the guessing game theme, although I can see Your Voice is also pretty stupid and bad, at least there's a celebrity panel there that you can have fun with, and Cheryl Hines is always lovely, and this, for me, what's the point? Like, I get they're scrambling for programming post-COVID, and they do very well with their Wednesday night guessing game lineups, but we're really starting to scrape, I think, the bottom here of the barrel. Game of Talents gets a C- from me. All right, that is going to wrap it up. We got out in a pretty good time. Try to keep these under 45, and we did it. I feel like there's something else big that is going to be out for next week's show. Oh, the new Disney Plus Marvel show. That will be airing in a few days, so I will have a review of the first episode of that. I don't think I'm going to do episode-by-episode reviews and recaps like I did with WandaVision, but I'll at least watch the first one and review that for you. We've also got, let's see, I guess Justice League on HBO Max is more of a movie, but you can watch it as a 4-hour movie or as 4 1-hour episodes, but I think I'll just watch it in full and call it a movie. So I will probably review it for the channel, but it will be in the movie side of things, not for TV news and reviews. But as always, there's tons of stuff coming down the pike, so we'll get to it all, and next week have some news for you as well, like usual. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.